Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar discussing everything you need to know about dual citizenship. So I'll just be getting started shortly, but first I'll go through some introductions. So we've just got a couple of things to go through. If you do have any questions, please pop them in the comments section and we'll try to answer them in the live Q&A at the end. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel if you'd like to see more of this type of content. And also, if you'd like, please fill out the webinar survey through the link in the description. So what will we cover today? What we're going to go through today is we're going to understand what is dual citizenship. We want to look into the new citizenship laws in Germany that are coming in quite soon, the little-known benefits of gaining EU citizenship, and also citizenship laws in the Czech Republic and Poland. Finally, then, we'll finish up with a live Q&A. So today we are joined by our moderator and founder, Eva Hussain. Eva is incredibly passionate about helping people gain EU citizenship, and she's a deep understanding of the process. She's a recognized leader in the fields of European citizenship and translation, and she also regularly presents on the topics of citizenship, language services, and European history. This makes her a fantastic facilitator for this discussion, and thank you for joining us, Eva. And next, we're going to introduce our guest speakers today. So first up, I'd like to introduce Anica Bushby. She is our Senior Research and Eligibility Specialist here at Polaron. She has a specialization in our German cases, and she has a shared understanding of the process as she is a European citizen herself. She enjoys being able to help people reclaim their citizenship through heritage. Thank you for joining us, Anica.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Next up, we'd like to welcome Alexandra Georgiou to the discussion. Alexandra is our EU Citizenship Specialist, and she assists prospective clients in determining whether they qualify for EU citizenship. She's a fountain of knowledge when it comes to EU citizenship eligibility, and this includes the Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Polish cases. It's wonderful to have you, Alexandra.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me.
So next up, before we just get started into discussion, I'm going to tell you a little bit about us at Polaron and the work that we do. We've been working since 2003 to help over 15,000 people to obtain EU citizenship and reconnect with their EU heritage. We provide administrative, linguistic, and project management support to our clients, as well as a dedicated case manager to help you through with your journey. If this is something that you are interested in, please feel free to reach out to the team and we'd be happy to discuss it further with you. Now, Eva, I'd like to pass you over to you to begin the discussion.
Brilliant. Thank you, Eva. I'm speaking to you today from Sydney. My colleagues are in Melbourne and in other places around the state, but welcome everyone. I'm not entirely sure if my camera is working as we had all kinds of technical issues this morning, but as long as you can hear me, we'll be fine. So let's do it. What is dual citizenship? That's in itself quite an interesting question that creates a bit of confusion. So I might just cover that very briefly, and then I'll ask Anica to comment. Particularly in light of the fact that just in the recent times, so we're talking since September 2021, we've had a lot of changes to the German citizenship laws in Germany, which made things more flexible, I guess, and more people now are eligible, and it is considered that German laws were kind of discriminatory towards women. So dual citizenship, it means for most places in the world is that you are allowed to hold it, but you will not be considered a citizen of another country whilst in the country of your birth, let's say. So it just means that many countries allow it, but don't recognize it, if that makes sense. So Anica, how does that work in Germany? And as of next week, which is June 26, 2024, the laws are going to change altogether allowing people to hold dual citizenship. Could you take us through how that's going to work, please?
Yes. So, I mean, the previous law in Germany was always a little bit like not so much pro multiple nationality. So, that's a big change that's coming in place for that section, because they kind of, they're recognizing that, there is a big European feeling for people. It is very common that you might have parents from different nationalities as well, and you grow up in that cultural environment, which is highly beneficial because you get to experience two cultures from parents. You can learn more languages, but you also want to keep that connection to your home country. So we have a lot of clients who fit this kind of briefing, who have parents or grandparents or grew up in this multilingual households, and some live in Germany, some live outside of Germany. So this law is really made to make it easier for them to naturalize when they fulfill the qualifications. They took out bureaucracy, some administration processes like the retention you had to apply for, which was time consuming and delaying, and so altogether it's really, really good changes. And when you mentioned the law changes since 2021, it's great to see, because they're so significant. They're looking at the discrimination in the past. So women, like you mentioned, or like nationals with or citizens with two nationalities who don't want to make a decision when they're 18 if they are this national or the other nationality. So
Right.
I think there are very modern questions that's been raised, and it's actually good to see that within 2-3 years those changes are being made.
Yeah, such a good point, Anica, there, when we talk about how the world has changed in terms of many people just wanting to be global citizens, essentially. And it is not about choosing allegiances, it's more about being both, right? Like you can have both identities, you can have dual identities, and you can be German and American. And I think, when you talk to our clients, potential clients, they all say that they'd like to be both, and there's nothing particularly wrong in it. And I think Germany has recognized that there are very big diasporas across the world, with lots of people wanting to be able to reclaim their citizenship. And I think making laws flexible helps everybody. So I did mention a little bit earlier the major change of law, and you also alluded to it, that in the past you had to request for an exemption to retain your German citizenship. So therefore, lots of people, by just virtue of naturalizing in another country, would lose their German citizenship, or they weren't able to naturalize if they didn't want to lose their German citizenship. So all of that's going to change, right, as of next week.
Yes, pretty much. So yeah, that totally falls away, the retention, which is brilliant, because it was like 4 pages, and you had to really outline why you want to naturalize in another country and not lose your. And it's all kind of very personal, and it's kind of not really fair on people when they do want to embrace those multicultural environment and heritage, to make them choose. So those changes are gonna be in place in 6 days, I believe. So that's actually really, really good.
Okay. And Anica, I have another question before I move on to Alexandra, who's another guest speaker for this morning for us. If somebody lost their citizenship because they naturalized in another country, is there a process, or will there be a process as of next week where people can, in a simplified way, reclaim it? Or do they have to renaturalize? What that's going to look like? Or is it still a bit unclear?
They still will do the naturalization process to do the normal one. But what they've done is, like you kind of have to see if you want to naturalize in Germany or outside of Germany. So for people living outside of Germany, they mainly made it easier that they don't have to choose, they don't have to give up, you know, their citizenship. While when you live in Germany, they made it much shorter, the time from 8 years to 3 to 5 years, if you have fulfilled certain qualifications, to be naturalized faster. And yeah, so that is pretty much the main benefits they did for this kind of law. If you have naturalized somewhere and you've given it up, you will still need to look at it, but there are also, you know, time frames where it might be looked at a little bit less harsh, more favorably, yeah, especially after, if that happened after 2000, you know, they might just ask a few additional questions, like if you could have applied for retention. So they made those nationality laws just a little bit less harsh than they were before.
But like with any law, Anica, I guess you would agree with me that the changes of the law are a great idea and everyone's happy. But what that's going to look like in practice is perhaps another story. We know that the department that manages citizenship, which is called BVA, is really overworked and under-resourced. So I think we'll be asking people for a lot of patience and a bit of flexibility as these changes are being rolled out. And we, of course, encourage everyone to contact us for more information, but we also looking forward to see what that's going to look like in practice and what the logistics will be, right?
Absolutely, I agree. And I think the amount of people naturalizing from outside of Germany will much increase, because, you know, they don't have to decide, or they don't have to prove that they can just maintain their nationality. Even if they want to naturalize outside of Germany, they still have to do the process. But I think that was a big argument why people were hesitant to do that, because they felt, I don't want to be asked to give up the nationality that I already have, but I still would like to get the other one. So I think there will be some delays, but yeah, I'm hoping the government or the administration's office will pick up on that.
Yeah, because this is one of those questions that we get asked all the time once people are working with us, or even before they decide to proceed with our services. How long will it take? So I know that you've been with Polaron for quite some years, and you would have noticed as well that timelines are more delayed, and it is just to do with how many. Oh yeah, is that like a top?
Yeah, it's like questions? A chart. It's like it's very hard to do it, you know, to pin it down in time, because it, like you said, it really depends on what the demand is. If, you know, if there's a spike, you know, there was, especially after COVID, you know, when offices were down, you know, that caused backlay, and then rising demand, more knowledge. It's been more communicated as well, those changes that came into place in 2021.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were advised 3 to 4 months. It was on the website, it was advised to us. And then, you know, those spikes happen and the demand goes up, and it takes a while until they figure out a way till it goes smooth. But yeah,
to manage the workload. And I think the German government no longer commits to any timelines, but some can take as long as 2.5 years, depending on the pathway. Initially also they were quite keen to process people that were over the age of 70. That no longer is the case. So we just ask everybody to be patient, and when we work with clients, most cases are guaranteed. So it's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when. And we liaise with the government in Germany, you know, to ask for priority processing sometimes, but you can't do it for everybody because, you know, they are under the pump. And I know that they had a restructure recently, which was aimed at making the processing faster, but that's still, you know, there are delays, and we're looking at least 12 months or more right now. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, what we're trying to do, especially for our clients is to really have a good outline in what we need to provide. So when we submit the application, they are complete with research. We sometimes back even up the research with additional documents just to make sure that it doesn't get put into a different pile. It stays in the line. Once you've got your number, you're sailing through. And it doesn't get delayed by being put into a different pile because something is missing. So I think that's what we found where we can really help and assist by making sure everything is there straight away.
That's a great point. So for any of our citizenships, we try and submit the applications in a format that's as complete as possible, because delays happen when governments have questions or when they want to clarify something, because, you know, by the time they write to you, by the time you respond, you know, it can take weeks, if not months. So when filing applications, we tend to make them as complete as we can. Thank you, Anica, for that. I might move on to our colleague Alexandra now, but not before I ask you about some of the other little-known benefits, Anica, of citizenship, particularly in the context of Germany, because that's where you are a specialist in our team. What are some of the things people don't know about that might be of benefit?
Well, first of all, you know, I mean, we have those big cultural vibes, you know, like often we have clients whose parents might have gone to the US, and, you know, the next generation is maybe not so much interested in, but then very often the grandchildren, they ask questions and they get excited and they want to connect and, you know, reclaim some heritage. And you know, so it's not just often what one person thinks about. It's also like thinking about the bigger picture of what, you know, it's very hard to get those passports. European passports are popular. They're very, very hard to get. And if you qualify through certain pathways, it can benefit your whole family, you know. In Germany, you know, education is pretty much free. So you can study at universities, you know, that's a very forward-thinking way. Also, you have 2 passports, so you're not just restricted. You can live and travel throughout the EU and additional countries to experience that, and have working rights and have you know, health insurance and all those kind of things. And I think it's more of a way of forward thinking for your family. Like, you know, even if you might not, or you are settled somewhere else, you know, the next generations, they might be really interested. And I very often see family trees where, you know, people don't qualify because they can't claim it through descent, which is a faster pathway. So because someone naturalized and they didn't know that at the time. So it's very good to see it for the benefits for the whole family, and you know, have that opportunity to live and vote in those different countries.
Yeah, so this is such a good point, because a lot of the time people come to us to get that passport, as you said. But there's so many secondary benefits for people, and often when we research, you know, background of families, we find out so much more information, and people didn't know about so many things when it comes to German citizenship or any other that we do. And really, once you get that elusive booklet that allows you to stay for more than 90 days and whatnot, it opens a lot of doors. But reconnecting you to your heritage, to the language, to the culture, to your ancestral home, is so amazing for so many people. And they don't think of that necessarily when they first contact us. But it becomes a very strong connection as well. And EU is shortly about to expand. So on the screen there would be 27 countries, but of course there'll be more. And I think we're going to be asking Eva to organize a webinar about that, right? Like, what are the other countries that are going to join the EU? So thank you, Anica, for that. I'll now go to Alexandra. And Alex, you specialize in Czech, Slovak, and Polish citizenship as well. And I'm sure that you're hearing from people as to why they would be pursuing citizenship, and it is to make things easier. But there's also that, I guess, heritage connection, that ancestral time connection. Did you want to tell us a bit more about that? Just briefly.
Yeah. So from my experience of when I deal with the clients that I work with, I usually like to ask them kind of what their motivation is behind wanting to get EU citizenship or a passport. And because it does vary between everyone, but obviously most of them are wanting to get their passport to regain that connection to their family and their heritage and that sort of thing. A lot of them also don't even start with the goal of getting citizenship. They've most likely just gone on Ancestry and done some research about their family and found out that they have family from Czech Republic or Germany or Poland. And then that just takes them on this whole sort of spiral of wanting to find out more about their heritage and their family. And then they also will come across that option that they can get citizenship, which is obviously a benefit for them because, as Anica mentioned, there's like that free travel, you can live anywhere, reside anywhere in any of the EU countries, amazing study options, career options, retirement's better in the EU, they have the best healthcare and all of that sort of thing. So yeah, I think for every individual it's unique, but those are like the most common ones, and definitely connecting to your heritage and like your ancestors is as Anica said, like mostly like grandchildren or like great-grandchildren even, like they're asking their parents and wanting to reconnect with their heritage. And that's like a lot of our clients who are coming to us are those like grandchildren and great-grandchildren who find it so interesting that their grandparents were from Europe or something. And then, yeah, that just takes them on that journey of wanting to get citizenship because there are all those benefits that they can get. Yeah.
And of course, for many, we're going back sometimes more than 100 years, and they simply don't know much about the grandparents or great-grandparents' histories, because when people immigrated in those days in particular, you were expected to, blend into society, assimilate, integrate, and people moved on, and, having that, ancestral linkages were maybe not as important or kind of had to be hidden even. I mean, there was a lot of racism and pressure to quite simply assimilate. So, Alex, I wanted to ask you, you've been with Polaron for some years now. You had a break of maternity leave, you're back. Yay, we're so happy to have you back. And tell me, how many families that you work with have like really mixed heritage, meaning that they come to us and they think that somebody was Czech or somebody was Slovak or whatnot. And it turns out that they were not. So there was a few surprises in store, right?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like the most common cases that I come across would obviously be someone inquiring about Czech citizenship, for example. And then we find out that in today's territory, their family was actually from the Slovak side, or possibly in some cases that they think their family's from Czech and that they have this Czech ancestry, but we find out that their family's actually of German nationality. So then they wouldn't qualify for Czech most likely, but they would potentially qualify for German citizenship instead. So in the last few years, I've come across cases, more significantly, the ones where they're of German nationality and they think that their family was Czech in all these years. I'm Czech nationality, blah, blah, blah. And then, no, you're actually German and you don't qualify for Czech, but you qualify for German. So yeah, I've come across that a lot. Yeah. It's very common, especially with all the border changes. Like people, so back then, people don't know what they were. They assumed that they were one thing and they left the country with one citizenship or one passport. But yeah, as laws changed over the years, that changes as well.
So it's really good to have an all-rounder and someone like you who understands all these different considerations, because you've mentioned that kind of already, but for example, for Czech citizenship, if you are of German nationality, even though you have held Czech citizenship or your ancestors have, you may not necessarily qualify, or Hungarian is another one. And that is to do with regional politics and shift of borders and kind of security considerations or concerns. So in the way that we work, I guess you will confirm for us that having a very detailed family tree is a key to success if you want to pursue citizenship through the Zambia.
Yes, definitely. The more information, the better, I say.
And I guess you'd be asking people for a lot of information, and they'd be like, oh, why do you need to know? Why do you need to know who your ancestors were on both sides of the family, Alex?
Yeah, because, for example, if some countries don't allow you to be allowed to get citizenship in another country if you're, entitled to something else. For example, you can't be a Czech citizen if you're entitled to Slovak citizenship, that sort of thing. So we need as much information as possible. Also, like, just because you're a family member was born in a country doesn't necessarily mean that they had that citizenship as well. So some people think, my family was born in Czech Republic, but okay, their grandparent may have been born in Czech Republic, but their parents actually held German citizenship, for example. So they would have most likely been born with German citizenship, regardless of being born in Czech Republic. So the more information we have, the better, and it just will give you a better chance of having an accurate assessment and us being able to offer you something that's going to actually work for you and that you will qualify for.
Right. So when we look into people's backgrounds, having that precise information and sometimes to the specific date, because over the last 100 years or so, maybe not the legislation itself that's changed, like it's done in Germany. Poland and Czech Republic have had like different permutations of the same legislation, but some of the way that it is being currently interpreted has, and therefore like really understanding whether people qualify or not and why, it would be essential to your job.
Yeah, definitely. There have been, with both Czech and Polish citizenship, there's been like changes in basically who would qualify or who would get citizenship by descent in those sorts of ways. It has changed over the years. So we do need specific dates of like immigration, naturalization, and marriage even, because for example, with Czech citizenship, there was a time where like if a foreign woman married a Czech citizen who was a man, she automatically acquired Czech citizenship, which means that their children could then get Czech citizenship. So there's all those dates are really important, and that's why we have it in the family tree. We need you to fill out the family tree with all that information, because that's going to allow us to determine whether you're eligible or not.
And speaking of changes to the laws, we are waiting with bated breath for Czechia, right? Because there's a period of about 20 years where people did not qualify because of how the legislation worked. And they are talking about changing that quite soon, is that right?
Yeah, so there's currently a bill that we're hoping will pass that basically will override the law that's currently in place. So between 1949 and 1969, for a child to get Czech citizenship passed down from their parents, both parents needed to hold Czech citizenship on the day of their birth. So that will hopefully change if this bill passes, which will allow even just if you had just one parent who was a Czech citizen on the day of your birth, you will be able to acquire Czech citizenship by descent, which would help so many of our clients, because that's one of the biggest things currently that I face is that period where people are born and they only have one Czech parent and they can't get citizenship, and it makes them very upset. And yeah, so hopefully it passes, fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, we'll keep an eye on how that progresses. But recently there was a referendum in Lithuania, and second time it failed to expand the laws. And I think the margin was 100,000 people, so not that many. Every now and then the laws change, they become more flexible, but sometimes, it requires constitutional change. Like it did in Lithuania, and it didn't pass. So we will keep our fingers crossed for Czechia, because as you said, lots of people feel Czech and they have a very strong ancestral connection, but they can't get citizenship because of a technicality in the law. And for Polish, Alexandra, that law of dissent is relatively flexible for Poland, yeah, compared to other countries.
Compared to other countries, I think yes. I know that with Polish citizenship by descent, they use the rule of blood. So yeah, I know it's not enough to just have a Polish birth certificate of your ancestor. Basically, we need to have other documents as well, like military and naturalization and that sort of thing. But it's much more flexible, I would say, compared to Czech, that I found, definitely.
Yeah, it's a lot stricter, and there are fewer sort of flexible provisions in the Czech law, particularly that Czechia and Slovakia used to be one country, then they separated, then they became another country, yet again, the Socialist Republic, Czechoslovakia, and now they choose separate states. So it's all a little bit confusing. So best to ask experts, best to ask Alexandra and Anica. Look, today we've allowed for plenty of time for questions because we usually run out of time. So we've got about 10-15 minutes. I might ask Eva to guide us through those questions. We do want to answer as many as we can. If something's not covered, feel free to reach out to us again. But we usually have such an interesting discussion that we run out of time. Hopefully not today. Over to you, Eva.
Hi, Eva. That was great. Really interesting discussion there. We have lots and lots of questions coming through. So I'll start with just a two-part question that kind of tied into what you were speaking about earlier. So this user says that they know that they qualify for Czech citizenship. My question is, my cousin and I are doing this together. Can we submit our application together with one copy of our grandmother's US naturalization paper? Also, we have all documents and apostilles, but we need translation services. Can you do that?
I might take that one on. Look, each application is assessed individually. So the way for adults, like if it's a minor child, then you can include that application with your own. But for cousins that are adults, they go in separately and they are assessed separately because they do look at things like people's marriages and years of naturalization. So even though you have a common ancestor, they need to be sure that both of you qualify. And sometimes even siblings may not qualify depending on the year they were born, or there's all kinds of considerations like that. But let's say you're both eligible. The way to handle that would be to notarize the naturalization certificate. And once that notarized copy is submitted, you don't have to be concerned about how that progresses within the Czech Department of Citizenship. Now, in terms of translations, yes, we do them. If you are interested, you can reach out. We typically handle applications from start to finish. And that's not to say that if you're working through the consulate, let's say, they are not helpful. We find that Czech consulates are super professional, super helpful. But sometimes they are busy and they don't assess applications. So all they ever do is gather your documents and then send them off to Prague. So we can assist with translations. You need sworn translations, so they need to be properly certified. But typically we work from start to finish, and that's the most cost-effective and fastest way. But yeah, feel free to reach out to us for more information.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, this user was born in Germany in 1943 and they have a German birth certificate. The part of Germany that they were born in is now Poland. Can they get their citizenship back?
Oh, what a great question. So I think we've already mentioned a couple of times that being born in Germany or anywhere, actually, that has law of blood isn't sufficient. So we would need to check who this person's parents were, or at least one parent. But for Germany, and I'll get Anica to speak to this, there's also legislation to do with being or your ancestors being victims of the Nazi regime. So there's no simple answer to this question, but I'll get Anica to maybe add to this a little bit more, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. This is a great one, and I really come across it very, very often, especially in the early stages when we look at family trees and we look where the places were and they have a German name, and you look it up and it's actually now in Poland, but it was in Germany in that time. So where do you look? And I know we are a company that is incredibly strong in that type of research because we look at both ends. So we would look in Germany for it because that's where the birth certificate could have been sent. But we also have a team in Poland that is fantastic, that I work very often very closely with, because they will write letters to the registry office that is now in Poland. And so we look up at both ends to make sure we are not missing evidence that we can use to prove that German citizenship was held. And yeah, it's like Eva said, you can look at also at the parentage as well to prove it, but you can also find some residential records in either country, now Poland or Germany, and use that. Sometimes, you know, I find what I'm looking for directly in Poland and it's in German and they just hadn't sent it, and so vice versa, you know. So it's we help out the Polish team and we find the documents they need. So it's really, really interesting.
Thanks, Anica. And I think I'll just add, in terms of claiming Polish citizenship through descent, there are provisions in the Polish law that prevent people of German nationality to reclaim Polish citizenship through descent. So under the Polish law, there's a difference between nationality and citizenship. And this is for, you know, I guess political reasons, but there are provisions in the Polish law preventing people from reclaiming Polish citizenship if they were of German nationality. So it's important to understand not just where somebody was born, but who were the parents, how did they end up there in 1943, did they stay in Europe after 1945? If so, was it after the borders changed? Was it before the borders changed? And overall, people that ended up in those areas that were later reclaimed by Poland when the borders shifted, it may also be that they can qualify for restitution under the German law. So really the best advice would be to contact us, and we can look in a lot of detail into which is the best pathway for someone like that in that situation. But there's no straightforward answer because, you know, in those days, the situation was very complex and people, you know, made all kinds of choices without really understanding that may affect their citizenship later on. So best to contact us and we'll look into it in a lot more detail.
Great, thanks, Eva. So the next question may be for Anica. This user has 6 generations in Germany. They say, my mother left Frankfurt to USA to marry my father. My grandparents remained in Germany. Am I now eligible since it previously did not allow the child of a German mother?
Yes, it's one of my favorite law changes that they actually looked at the female lineages and they said, hey, actually, this is not really fair that you should just get a citizenship from a male. So they're trying to rectify that, and it's not very much publicized, or not many people know that, or they might have been told previously they're not eligible. But since the past 2 or 3 years now, they are eligible actually to claim it from a German grandmother or a mother, or, you know, it depends on when the next generation was born. So there are things we have to look at in terms of marriage dates and naturalization dates. But I very often get those family trees in, and I can say straight away, that's the winner. We now just have to get the evidence to prove she was German. She was a German grandmother, and then it's a very good application to do.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just add to that the burden of proof is on the applicant. So the German government doesn't necessarily do their own research. So I think we've covered that earlier on in the discussion, where we go to the source, get the right documents, so that's like a turnkey solution. In other words, it doesn't require further questions or exploring of any of the background. So coming to the German government with good documentation that's solid is always a good way to cut out several months out of the process. And thanks, Anica. That was good news for this particular person. That's us. Over to you, Eva.
Yeah, great news indeed. So the next question is focused on Polish citizenship. They say, my great-grandfather and my grandmother came to the USA in 1930. Would I be eligible for Polish dual citizenship?
Alex, did you want to take that one?
Yeah. So again, similar to other questions we've had, it's not a straight answer because there's many other things we need to look at. Marriage dates, naturalization dates, and that sort of thing. And then when the next generation was born as well. So I encourage you to contact us again, fill in the family tree, and we will be able to give you an assessment that will give you a straight answer then. But yeah, there's many things, as you will notice in our answers, there's many things that we need to look at. It's not as simple as like someone being born there, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, get in contact with us and we will definitely give you an assessment and give you an answer.
Yeah, and of course it's all free, and you don't need to proceed with us if you decide not to. But we do have behind the scenes an eligibility team, and it's made up of people who used to work for the government in Poland, and legal advisors who really understand. But if I could just go back to this particular question, my answer is most likely. It really does depend on a few factors, but maybe I can give everybody like a super quick way for us to explain how legislation in Poland works. So Poland was partitioned and only became independent again in 1918. So the first laws to do with citizenship were put in place in 1920. So if anyone's left before 1918, it may be harder to claim citizenship because there was no Poland, there was no Polish citizenship. Some people still qualify, and we have a 100% success rate in those cases that we take on. But somebody that's left in 1930, quite likely. But again, before 1951, laws in Poland were discriminatory towards women. So let's say this person, great-grandmother, married a non-citizen before 1951. There's a chance that that great-grandmother or grandmother lost her Polish citizenship by virtue of that marriage. It's a bit more complicated than that, but also naturalization may cause loss of citizenship. So basically, the Polish government looks at people's cases by way of exclusion, meaning that they will look at any events that may have affected the line of citizenship, which needs to remain unbroken until whoever asked the question was born and until today. So, different, same legislation, but different interpretation gets applied along the ancestral line, and we will give you an answer. And most likely, in most cases, we also provide a guaranteed outcome if you work with us. Eva, I think maybe we have like 2 minutes left. Maybe one more question.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have time for one more question. So the last one I'll ask is, what are the tax implications for someone who is just retiring? Are we responsible for taxes to the EU or the country we are applying to?
Great question. We have run a webinar a few months ago about tax implications with our tax advisor who's based in America. So I'll just briefly say that it really depends on your country of origin. It depends on where you reside full time. Many countries have treaties signed for non-dual citizenship, meaning not dual taxation, meaning that you cannot be taxed twice. But in a place like the US, for example, you always have to report on your tax, regardless of where you live. And there are also income thresholds. And if you're retiring, as you've said, it's best to speak to someone that can advise you, correctly in terms of your obligations and how you can place yourself as a, essentially a dual citizen, because they also look at residency and other, considerations, including your age, including whether you're retired or are still working, and all of that. So in the chat, we'll pop email address to our advisor that you can contact and explore this further. It is also about individual circumstances, so we wouldn't necessarily be able to answer that, but he will, and we encourage you to contact him.
Great, thanks for answering that, Eva. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. We did have a lot of questions coming in that unfortunately we weren't able to get to. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can contact us at citizenship@polaron.com.au, or you can give us a call on the number on the screen. If you'd like to follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn, you'll find us at Polaron European Citizenship on both, or you can scan the QR code. Thank you so much to our guest speakers and to Eva for joining us today. It was a brilliant discussion.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you, Eva, for organizing everything. Thank you to Alex and to Anica for bringing your perspectives and explaining in a bit more detail how the legislation works. I really appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having
Take
us.
care.
For having us.
Okay, bye.